My name is Hanna, and I'm delighted to be here today and introduce some open science trends observed globally. As you may know, open science covers different open and collaborative practices that apply to various information resources, outputs produced throughout the research cycle. And examples include pre-registering your research plan in a public repository before conducting the study and ensuring that resulting outputs are openly accessible and reusable. And according to a global survey I conducted as part of Research Data Alliance, among diverse open science practices, researchers are predominantly involved in making their scientific publications open access. Open research data management and sharing is a second most adopted open science practice, while the least popular activity is the pre-registration of study designs. And we are now seeing a trend where governments in some countries are stepping up to develop specific national open science action plans or strategies to support coordinated implementation of diverse open science practices. And these strategic instruments are often initiated by ministers of science and jointly developed with other national stakeholders, including research organizations. And the majority of such national open science plans can be seen within European countries. And on the slide, for example, you can see Netherlands and France have been early adopters of such plans. However, the most common approach across countries is the adoption of open science policies, if any, only at the level of funding agencies and research organizations, which often result in fragmentation and limited harmonization of open science policies within a country. Now I will introduce you a few trends related to open access specifically. As I mentioned earlier, open access is the most adopted open science practice among researchers, and this is largely because open access policies have a longer history and they are more prescriptive and enforceable. But policies for other open science aspects are less established and are often just recommended. Open access policies are largely focused on journal articles only, and Western Europe and North America lead with about 60% of all open access mandates registered in international database roadmap. This table shows the open access publication trend across countries, covering gold, hybrid, bronze, and green open access publications indexed in Scopus over the 10 last years. And top 10 leaders are all European countries, with the United Kingdom at the top. And Korea, you can see, ranks 41st, but it's for 10 years. The primary factor behind Korea's relatively modest open access status is a national legal framework on management and distribution of government-funded research, including National R&D Innovation Act. And these legal instruments don't fully support open access, requiring only the public accessibility of full-text reports and metadata describing outputs. And this results in a scarcity of formal institutional open access policies in Korea, and the Global Registry of Open Access Policies roadmap lists only a single green open access mandate from Korea issued by KISTI. Each year over the past decade, closed access papers have been gradually reduced from 34 to 51%, reflecting a global trend towards different open access models. Gold papers in fully open access journals have shown a predominant and rising trend, increasing by about 20% over this decade. Hybrid open access papers in subscription journals have experienced also a constant growth, now representing the second largest share among open access models. However, there is a decreasing trend in the proportion of green open access after 2018. And the green open access model actually needs better support to realize its full potential. And the majority of open access policy in different regions still continue to respect embargoes imposed by publishers, delaying the immediate self-archiving of publications in repositories. However, there is a trend, developing trend towards immediate green open access without embargoes, known as zero embargo movement. And you can see here several important initiatives promoting this trend. For example, the public access memorandum issued by US White House Office of Science and Technology Policy in 2022 is a landmark directive requiring immediate access to federally funded scientific publications and underlying research data. And actually, this US memorandum has potential to influence the global open access, open science policy landscape in some extent. And at the level of European Union, there is ongoing discussion to make zero embargo open access as a default setting by adoption of EU-wide secondary publishing rights legislation, and which will make all member states to transpose relevant provisions in their laws. The essence of secondary publishing rights concept is to grant researchers a legal right to deposit their publicly funded papers in open access repository after its first publication in a journal. And at this moment, 7 European Union countries like France, Spain already implemented secondary publishing rights in their laws. And these laws are copyright acts or laws on science and technology. Another important initiative is Zero Embargo Coalition as Rights Retention Strategy, which has prompted Coalition as funders to add a specific clause in their grant agreements. And upon signing the agreement, grant recipient researcher is obliged to apply Creative Commons license, CC BY license, to all future author-accepted manuscripts supported by the grant. And the key point of this approach is that the agreement between the author and the funder has legal precedence over any future publishing agreements which require copyright transfer to the publisher and limit green open access. In addition to funders, some universities adopted rights retention policies. And university rights retention policies work in a similar way, but here researchers are legally bound with prior obligations as part of a contract with their employer university. And university policies typically require that researchers include a specific language regarding CC BY license in the acknowledgement section of the manuscript upon submission. And you can see here on the right the sample of this policy language required. United States has emerged as a global leader in institutional rights retention policies, with Harvard University setting this movement about 15 years ago. The second global leader is United Kingdom. The University of Edinburgh was the first UK university who adopted such type of policies. And UK is also leading in, among all European universities in the number of rights retention policies with zero embargo. And the first link on this slide provides a global list of universities' rights retention policies, and it's interesting to see that there is no such type of policies in Asia. As discussed earlier, gold open access is experiencing a significant rise, outpacing other open access models. And within gold open access, we identify two types. First is fee-based publications involving author-side article processing charges, APC. And second is diamond open access, which is completely free of charge for both authors and readers. And if you look at the graph on the left, there is a trend towards establishing no-fee diamond open access journals. By the beginning of this year, 68% of all gold open access journals listed in DOAJ database operate under the diamond model. However, if you look at the graph on the right, we can see that fee-based open access journals still dominate in the volume of published articles. Nevertheless, diamond open access papers slowly growing in numbers. From this table, we can see that Latin America, followed by Eastern Europe, leads in the proportion of diamond open access journals relative to their total open access journals, and also in the proportion of articles published in these diamond open access journals. Basically, all open access journals in Latin America are diamond ones. In contrast, Western Europe and Pacific region, including US, don't have many publications in the diamond open access journals. However, these two regions, Western Europe and Pacific, leads in the overall gold open access publications, the majority of which are fee-based. Diamond open access journals are mostly observed within social sciences field and less prevalent within STEM. These journals mostly typically owned by universities or societies, and we can also see a growing investment in infrastructures and services at regional and country levels aimed at capacity building and improving sustainability of diamond journals. And this includes, for example, developing and providing technology for editorial workflows and content preservation. And on the following slides, I will give you some examples of such infrastructures. Latin America, as I said, a global leader in diamond open access, has a mature infrastructure called ReaderLeak. It's not only a platform of full-text open access papers from index journals in the region, but they also provide multiple services and tools for professionalization of non-profit open access journals. In Europe, there are two ongoing Horizon projects to improve professionalization of diamond journals of European research organizations. The DMAS project is dedicated to sharing best practices, improving skills, editorial quality, and financial sustainability of diamond journals. And the CRAFT Open Access project is building federated infrastructure to support European diamond journals. For example, the project aims to ensure the quality of journals' metadata and its integration with major aggregators such as EOSC and OpenAir. And in Korea, KISTI provides multiple services for domestic journals, such as a peer review system ECOMS, that supports the whole scholarly publishing process from the submission of manuscript till the publication of XML-based article. ECOMS is linked with domestic and international metadata aggregators and also with KISTI open access platform Access On, which provides a repository archiving service for journals. And now we will proceed to open research data management and sharing, which is the second most adopted open science practice globally. And what we can see is that most data policies across countries require data management plan, DMP, during the research proposal stage. But there is frequently a lack of enforcement of DMP implementation. And we also observe a developing trend towards the expectation of fair data, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, but predominantly in European policies with strong push from European Union bodies. For example, the FAIR requirement is incorporated in the legislative act of European Union called Open Data Directive, which mandates all member states to transpose FAIR data principles in their national policies. And this push towards fair data is emphasized by European Commission's estimation of the annual cost of not having fair data at impressive 10 billion euros. The European Open Science Cloud, EOSC, is creating a robust federated infrastructure of fair data and services. A graph on the left provides some insight on researchers' adherence to fair data principles based on a recent global survey conducted by Springer Nature, Figshare, and Digital Science. And the results show that only 23% of researchers fully comply with FAIR principles, 42 partially comply, 7% don't comply at all, and 28% said that they don't know anything about fair data principles. And the recently EOSC team developed measurable key performance indicators, KPIs, to rigorously assess adherence to fair principles across European Union countries. And for example, the KPIs cover several areas, such as existence of fair policies in a country, actual adoption of fair principles in terms of the number of fair digital objects, the implementation of fair technical components such as persistent identifiers and standards, and human resources allocated to support fairness. And the result of this detailed assessment will be available in spring of next year. And here I want to draw your attention to the global challenge concerning open research data. Very often there is a disconnect. Open research data is not linked to scientific publications it supports. Also, the practice of including data availability statements in articles which describe how to access underlying data is not widespread globally. And this gap makes it challenging to effectively monitor data sharing practices. And to tackle this problem, there are two most known approaches which some countries, organizations apply. First approach is creating persistent identifiers, PIDs, for research projects, which helps in linking associated outputs, participants, and other project-related elements. The one example of this is a global PID for project called Research Activity Identifier, RAID, developed by Australian Research Data Commons and governed by ISO standard. RAID is being currently integrated into the EOSC ecosystem to create identifiers for all EU-level projects. Korea follows a bit similar approach with their own PID system for national R&D projects integrated into the NTIS service. However, at this moment, research data is disconnected with national R&D project because in Korea, research data is not legally recognized as a type of R&D outputs. As soon as this legal barrier is resolved, research data along with other outputs will be linked to project ID. And second approach is the utilization of machine learning tools to mine article text for automatic detection of dataset mentions. An example of this approach is seen in France with the implementation of the Open Science Monitor service at the country level. Also, to track data sharing mentions in full text articles, some entities like the PLOS publisher and US-based funder Michael J. Fox Foundation, they have started to use external services of AI company DataSeer. You can see a link here. To continue our discussion on open research data, we can also see a trend of some universities employing data stewards and establishing their networks. And this new type of professionals supports the data management and sharing tasks of individual researchers, research teams, or students. For example, helping them with data management plans and advising on data repositories. And TU Delft University in Netherlands was one of the first universities in the world who embedded the data steward's role in each faculty since 2018. And according to Research Data Alliance study, the majority of data stewards' roles have been established in universities in Europe, followed by North America. Now I want to discuss a negative global trend inhibiting open science. The research evaluation and reward systems currently in place actually fail to adequately recognize and incentivize open science practices. And the figure here on the slide illustrates the finding from my survey with Korean stakeholders. And it shows that in Korea, the research evaluation and reward system is the primary obstacle to embracing open science. And there are two related problems. The first is with formal research evaluation procedures. They typically don't include openness in the specified performance indicators for outputs. Instead, prioritizing the quantitative indicators such as journal impact factor. The second problem is that researchers' additional time and effort spent on open science activities such as preparing raw data for open sharing is not specifically rewarded by tangible incentives. And there are some good initiatives across countries developed to respond to these problems. For example, at the European Union level, a major development is creation of a global coalition for advancing research assessment, the so-called QUARA, as European Commission's initiative. And this coalition includes national research assessment agencies, funders, research organizations within and also outside European Union. And they are collaboratively working to enhance research evaluation practices in line with shared principles, and open science is part of these principles. Additionally, the European Union Horizon Europe funding program has incorporated open science practices in its evaluation of research proposals and project assessments. In Latin America, there is a well-known FOLEC forum which actively promotes research evaluation reforms in the whole region. Also, there is a well-known multi-stakeholder initiative in the Netherlands called Dutch Recognition and Rewards Program, which is supported by the Ministry of Education and Science of Netherlands. There are some commitments in France. For example, French research institutes such as CNRS and INRIA require that only open access publications available in the National Open Archive Hall be cited in the annual research evaluation report. Some initiatives are also emerging to address the issue of rewards for open science activities. Some of them provide researchers involved in open science with financial rewards, such as specific open science prizes or funds for open science projects, and others provide just symbolic reputation-building incentives, such as inclusion in halls of fame. And one example, like very recent example, is the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy's Open Science Challenge, which was launched this month. And this initiative encourages researchers to submit stories demonstrating how the use of open science practices in government-funded projects has contributed to some kind of societal advancement innovation. And the winners will be nominated as champions of open science by US government. And on this slide, I want to draw your attention to a very early stage emergent trend, currently a topic of active discussion in many places, which is decentralized science, or DeSci. This is a Web3 movement that leverages blockchain technology to establish a decentralized infrastructure for open science ecosystem. In particular, it has the potential to create dynamic and fair digital research objects by seamlessly interlinking all elements of research and making them accessible in one place. DeSci promises to overcome some flaws in existing conventional approaches. For example, it prevents vendor lock-in and dependency on single service providers such as DOI.org. Decentralized science also can enhance trust in science through greater transparency, because every event is traceable within this network. This movement also introduces so-called distributed persistent identifiers PIDs based on cryptographic hashes for every digital object. And these PIDs support version control and are specifically designed for linked data. In contrast, traditional DOIs lack versioning support and linked data compatibility. And also DOIs are quite costly, while there is typically no charges associated with distributed PIDs. Also, decentralized science can reward open science practices by using tokens as incentives. And most features listed on the previous slide actually operationalized in the DSI Nodes platform, which is a recent innovation introduced by Swiss company DSI Labs. And this platform in its beta testing stage at this moment, and it's got the attention from some NASA researchers. I hope you will have access to my slides later, and there is a link to this platform you can check later. In essence, DSI Nodes platform is an application designed to transform traditional static PDF manuscripts to dynamic machine actionable reproducible records. For example, it enables the linking of tables, figures, and like all elements in the manuscript directly with their supporting data and code. And also, I provided here a link on the bottom of the slide, which gives examples to other decentralized science projects. Some of them designed some platforms for transparent peer review and crowdfunding of scientific research. What I would like to say is that while decentralized science has significant potential, the adoption of this new revolutionary approach might not be so fast, especially within government-funded science. So raising awareness about this technology, encouraging dialogue with the private DSI sector, and also being open to experiments are essential steps at this moment. And to conclude my presentation, I would like to offer 6 concrete recommendations for stakeholders involved in open science implementation. The first recommendation is to foster multi-stakeholder development of national open science policy, and it suggests creating strategic instruments like a national open science plan and related advisory groups that would define clear objectives and coordinate harmonized actions among all stakeholders in a country. The second recommendation emphasizes the importance of legal support for open science. It suggests incorporating a green open access mandate or rights retention provisions into relevant laws, and also ensuring that research data is included into the scope of laws related to government-funded R&D outputs. The third recommendation suggests reducing dependency on fee-based gold open access by diversifying investment in infrastructure that support the capacity building of domestic diamond open access journals. The fourth recommendation suggests promoting explicit policies and support measures for less established open science practices, such as open access to royalty-producing literature, like monographs, and the application of FAIR principles to research data. The fifth recommendation suggests initiating feasibility studies and national level discussions to reconsider quantitative metrics like journal impact factor and try to think about new open science related indicators and incentives. And the last recommendation is to ensure machine actionable links between all elements and outputs across the national research and innovation ecosystem for greater reproducibility and efficiency. And as a first step, it's advisable to develop or reinforce national persistent identifier strategy, considering international interoperability of PIDs. And it would be good to explore the potential of decentralized global PIDs. that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.